officially summer, so here are some horror movies that you should definitely have on your summer horror movie watch list. A lot of people tend to focus on slashers in the summer. These are very woodsy, camp-centric horror movies, movies that center around the ocean or vacations, and there's a little bit of something for everyone. So let's jump into it. Jaws is the quintessential summer horror movie. It was one of the first blockbuster horror movies, or blockbusters in general. This movie is iconic for many reasons. It's a Steven Spielberg directed film about a small town that is terrorized by a great white shark, and the sheriff who teams up with a marine biologist and a fisherman to take the shark down. This one has so many iconic moments and beautiful cinematography throughout. It's just iconic, and it has iconic characters, iconic performances, and it gets better with each watch. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the 1974 Tobe Hooper horror classic about a group of people who discover a murderous family that has a penchant for eating people and using chainsaws to kill them. The movie is just beautiful, even though it's horrifying. It's also equally disturbing, and it just makes you feel dirty. I love that the movie is shot entirely in the daylight, so there's very bright moments of horror throughout this. I love this movie, and it just feels like summer. Wrong Turn is a 2003 horror about a group of friends who are traveling to a trip somewhere. Their car breaks down on this weird road in the middle of nowhere in the West Virginia wilderness, and they eventually find themselves being stalked by a crazed family of inbreds. I feel like Wrong Turn gets lost in the shuffle of early 2000s horror. I think this is one of the best. This one has a really fun story, some really cool kills. Popcorn is a 1991 campy horror about a group of film students who throw a 24-hour horror movie marathon at their local theater, and a mass killer begins killing off people one by one. I think that this one just feels like summer. It's set entirely at a movie theater, and I feel like the movies is one of the best places to cool off during those hot summer days, and it's just so much fun. It's silly and it has ridiculous moments. Killer Klowns from Outer Space is a cult horror classic about a group of alien clowns who invade and terrorize this small town. I love this movie so much, and I feel like a lot of people say it's a bad horror movie, but I don't think it's bad. Like, it has amazing costume design of these clowns. They are so larger than life. They're so colorful, and I love the setting, and their spaceship is so fucking cool, and it was just so creative and inventive. And I love like the cotton candy cocoons that they put people in, and like seeing them drink out of them. Like, that stuff was just so brilliant to me. And I love the clowns themselves. They're scary, but they're also fun, and you just want to kind of hang out with them, but they are scary. And there's one scene in particular in this movie that is absolutely haunting, and it involves one of the clowns using a sheriff as a puppet. It is the scariest scene ever, and I feel like a lot of people overlook it, but this movie is just everything. It feels like summer. It's got those carnival clown vibes, and I think everyone needs to watch it during summer. Friday the 13th is a slasher classic. This one kicked off the Friday the 13th franchise, which really any one of these movies in the franchise is good to watch for summer. It's set at a summer camp where teenagers are getting killed off one by one by a masked killer. First Friday the 13th introduced us to Jason's mom, who is essentially seeking revenge for what happened to her son, and then the future installments introduce us to Jason, who then kills off campers and sex-crazed teenagers throughout the franchise. Fear Street 1978 was something that was clearly influenced by Friday the 13th and the whole Friday the 13th series. This is the second film in the Fear Street trilogy on Netflix, and it centers on a group of kids at Camp Nightwing who are being terrorized by a mass killer who looks very much like Jason. This one features a lot of fun moments. The setting is immaculate. The music, the whole 70s vibe, they capture really well, and I also love the cast. Sleepaway Camp is another campy, woodsy horror classic. This is about a group of people at camp, and someone starts killing them off one by one. This one is known for having a really shocking twist ending that I feel like many of us know by now, but it's still pretty bold and ahead of its time when you think about it. Deep Blue Sea is another horror movie that I think is perfect for summer. It's set around water and sharks, which just makes me think of summer. This one is one of the best best shark movies behind Jaws, in my opinion. It's a shark exploitation film, so it's very big, over the top, and ridiculous at times, but I still think it nails the suspense and mystery aspects of it. There's a lot of amazing action in this, and the story centers on a research facility that are experimenting on sharks to find a cure for Alzheimer's, and in doing that, they make the sharks smarter, and the sharks have had enough of their shit, so they start basically breaking down the facility, flooding them out so they can escape into the ocean. This one is just so intense at times, so exciting. It has an amazing cast, some amazing shark moments, and I just love it so much. Children of the Corn is a Stephen King classic that's a little bit dated, but I still think there's a lot to appreciate about it. The story centers on a couple who break down in this small town that is essentially overrun by these children who have killed all the adults and are taken over. And they live among the corn and they worship this corn god. I don't know. I haven't seen it forever, but I plan to rewatch it. I love cornfields and I love creepy children in cornfields. So this is the perfect combination of that, you know? The Ruins is another vacation gone wrong horror movie. This is about a group of friends who are on spring break in Mexico, and they meet up with this other guy who's looking for his brother. He asks them to come with him, and they do, and they stumble upon these ruins, these ancient ruins that are gorgeous. But when they get on the ruins, the locals won't let them leave, and they find out that the plants living on the ruins are very dangerous. This one is just very mind-bendy. It's a very disturbing at times. There's a lot of body horror moments in this. The plants are just ruthless, and it's really scary to watch them play with the characters' minds and literally get under their skin. There's a lot of creepy, gross moments in this, and I think it's a really good survival horror story. Turistas is another horror movie that is centered around a vacation gone wrong, and this time we're in Brazil. These characters get marooned on this rural island, and a local gives them a little tour. They stumble into an organ harvesting ring. It's ridiculous, but so much fun. I Know What You Did Last Summer is a late 90s horror slasher about a group of friends who kill someone accidentally and then start receiving threatening letters from somebody who knows what they did. Joyride is a road horror about a group of brothers who are driving cross country in a car, and they start to have a little fun using their car CB radio and messing with some truck drivers nearby, but unfortunately they mess with the wrong truck driver and he begins terrorizing them through the rest of the movie. The Forsaken is another late 90s road horror movie. This is about a guy who is bringing a car across country for somebody, and he meets a hitchhiker along the way who happens to be bitten by a vampire, and they encounter another woman who's been bitten by a vampire, and the lead character ends up getting infected as well. So these three characters are essentially on a race against time, trying to find a cure for their vampirism. At the same time, they're being hunted by this gang of vampires led by Jonathan Scheck. I love this movie so much. I love the vibe. It is definitely late 90s. It stars Kerr Smith and Brendan Fear from Dawson's Creek and Roswell, and I think they're so fun together. I think they're great leads. I love the road aspect where they're driving from place to place trying to get away from these vampires, and the vampires are very just evil, and they feel almost like the same type of vampires as in Near Dark, but they're sexy. And sexy, dirty is the best way I can describe this movie. Sexy, dirty vampire road movie. The Lost Boys is an iconic vampire horror movie about a family who moved to a small coastal California town and discovered that there's a gang of vampires running amok. Andy Machete's It Chapter 1 from 2017 is set entirely in the summer, and it centers on a group of kids in the 80s who are being terrorized by an evil clown who essentially can take shape of whatever your biggest fear is. This one is just, it's a beautiful story about friendship and being a little kid and all of the things that you have to deal with as a little kid, like dealing with bullies, dealing with a difficult home situation, and just finding your group of friends and your little family of friends as a little kid. So highlights the evils of small town America. There's just so much to love about this movie, and I feel like it has some really great moments with Pennywise. It's very dark, and the kid cast is so fucking good. I love them all. The Hills Have Eyes remake from 2006 is a road-centric Horror movie, this is about a family who are on a road trip for their parents' anniversary and their RV breaks down in the middle of the desert and they find themselves being stalked by some mutant freaks in the mountains. I love this one so much. It is violent, it is gory at times. There's some really hard to watch moments involving SA, but I also love watching this family overcome this huge darkness and fight back. Jordan Peele's Us from 2019 centers on a family whose seaside vacation trip goes horribly wrong when their doppelgangers show up one night and try to kill them. Tucker and Dale versus Evil is a backwoods horror about two guys named Tucker and Dale who everyone assumes is going to be evil, murderous guys, but they are actually like the sweetest humans ever. But they're a little stupid and they find themselves in horrifying situations that just keep getting worse. Tremors is an amazing creature feature horror movie set entirely in the desert, in the sun. It's a very bright horror movie, and it centers on these two guys who are essentially trying to fight for their lives against these sandworms, these worms that come out of the ground. Club Dread is a horror comedy about a group of people on this vacation island called Pleasure Island that is owned by this Coconut Pete, who is essentially like a Jimmy Buffett-like character, and somebody starts killing them off one by one. This one is just, it's from Brook and Lizard, so you go into it knowing what kind of humor you're going to expect. It's an homage to horror slashers that we know and love. Triangle, which is a trippy horror movie about a group of people who are out on a yacht when they have an accident and they find a boat nearby, and when they get on this boat, weird shit starts happening. Wolf Creek is an Australian outback set horror movie about a group of backpackers whose car breaks down and they encounter this guy who's seemingly helpful, but it turns out he's a fucking serial killer and he drugs them and starts torturing them and they have to figure out how to get out alive. Does it happen? I don't know. This movie is very brutal. It's bleak. It gave us a head on a stick, which is something I never ever wanted to learn about, but I can never get out of my head now. Thanks. Eight-Legged Freaks is a horror movie about a small town that's overrun by these huge giant spiders. I think this one is silly. It's kind of a callback to those creature feature horror movies of the 50s. They're just very big, over the top, ridiculous plot, but it has really fun characters, a really great cast, and I love that they are living in a small town and they find themselves in a mall trying to fend off all these spiders. I think the spiders element is really fun and it's not too scary. Tourist Trap centers on a group of young people whose car breaks down and they find themselves stranded at this roadside museum populated by creepy mannequins. This one is just weird. It's just quirky and weird, and the mannequin stuff is disturbing. Like, it's just freaky. The Strangers Pray at Night is the sequel to The Strangers, and this one is a much more lighthearted version of that story. This time around, we're following a family who are traveling to bring their daughter somewhere, and they stop at a mobile park to stay with some relatives, and when they get there, they discover that there's three strangers who are terrorizing everybody in town, and they begin terrorizing them. This one is just fun. It is so entertaining and colorful, and it's filled with 80s music that you would think wouldn't work for a movie like this, but it fits perfectly, and there's lots of really amazing set pieces. There's one in particular involving a swimming pool that many remember, and another scene that is an homage to Christine. It's just beautiful and fun to look at. The characters are really interesting and they actually fight back. And I think this one is the best of the Strangers films. Then we have Midsommar, which is about a depressed girl whose entire family has died and she has a boyfriend who doesn't want to break up with her, so he brings her on his boys trip to visit this roommate's midsummer festival, and some weird dark shit happens. This one is very dark, it's disturbing, but it's set in midsummer, so it's bright. Everything is bright and unique. I love when horror movies are set entirely in the daylight. It doesn't make anything less disturbing. In fact, I find things a little bit more disturbing when it's bright and sunny outside, because you think, bright, sunny, I'm safe, but you're not. that. Summer of '84 is about a group of kids during summer break who begin to suspect that their neighbor is a serial killer, and they find themselves a little in too deep. This one is fun, it's entertaining, and it has a very Stranger Things vibe. And lastly, we have X, which is the Thai West horror movie about a group of filmmakers who stay on a farm to make their adult film, and they begin getting killed off one by one. This is an homage to 70s horror movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It introduced us to Maxine Minx, who we are following in Maxine, and it's just filled with so many fun characters and moments where these characters feel real and lived in. I like the commentary it has on sexuality, female sexuality in particular, and aging and how we treat old people. It's just unique and interesting, and there's a lot of fun moments in this. And there you have it. Those are some horror movies that I think should definitely be on your summer horror movie watch list. Let me know what movies you would add to this list and what movies you're excited to dive into first. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time. Bye.